Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. We are back, continuing with our look at the triennial Torah portion. This week, we are going to be looking at Genesis chapter 15, Bereshit 15, which we are calling the word came. The word came. All right. We aren't going to waste any time. We're going to jump right into our lesson. We're going to go ahead and read chapter 15, and then we'll go ahead and discuss after. So let's go ahead and look at Genesis 15, chapter 15, verse 1. If you could go ahead and read for us, nice and loud.
It says, after these events, the word of Yahweh came to Abram in a vision, saying, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your word is exceedingly great. And Abram said, Master Yahweh, what would you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eleazar of Damascus? And Abram said, see, you have given me no seed, and see, one born in my house is my heir. And see, the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, this one is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir. And he brought him outside and said, look now toward the heavens and count. And if you are, count the stars, if you are able to count them. And he said, see, so are your seed. And he believed in Yahweh, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. And he said to him, I am Yahweh, who brought you out of Ur Kasdim to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Master Yahweh, whereby do I know that I possess it? And he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, and a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took all these to him, and cut them in the middle, and placed each half opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds. And the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, and Abram drove them away. And it came to be when the sun was going down, and a deep sleep fell upon Abram, that a frightening great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abram, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. But the nation whom they serve I am going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you are to go to your fathers in peace. You are to be buried at a good old age. Then in the 4th generation they shall return here, for the crookedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to be when the sun went down and it was dark, that see a smoking oven and a burning torch passing between those pieces. On the same day Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, I have given this land to your seed, from the river of Mitzrayim to the great river, the river of Euphrates, with the Canaanite and the Kenizzite and the Cadmonite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Rephaim and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Girgashite and the Jebusite.
All right. Very good. Very good. Okay, so let us go back and look at a few things. We want to kind of walk our way through this chapter. If anybody has any comments, go ahead and put them there in the chat. We'll definitely try to get to it. So it begins over here with verse 1. Hold on one second here. Hold on a second. One second. Let me just. Hold on one second here. Some technical difficulties. All right. So it begins after these things. After these things. So if we remember from last week, after these things, what it's speaking of over here, we briefly discussed the parenthetical interjection, that is the meeting of Avram and the priest Melchizedek, in the way that king of Sodom was on his way to meet with Avram. And then all of a sudden we have this meeting that took place between Melchizedek and Avram. And so, as I previously stated, when we look over here, we see that Melchizedek, as far as I am concerned, was a physical visitation of the pre-incarnate Yeshua. Okay. And so when we think about this verse 1 over here in chapter 15, where it says, after these things, after we have this visitation from Messiah himself in some type of physical form, some physical representation, after this happens, the word of Yahweh came to Avram. And so, when we think about, it's interesting when you look at kind of the placement of this situation, we see again how when we look at chapter 14, we have this kind of a spiritual / physical meeting between Messiah and Avram. And then again in 15 verse 1, after these things, after that happened, now the word of Yahweh, it says, came to Avram. The word came to him. So we could think about that in a few ways, right? Did some words just pop up in his mind? Did he just have a thought about some particular things that the Most High, that he believed that the Most High was speaking to him? In what way do we think about this when it says the word of Yahweh came to Avram? We think about the word of Yahweh, we automatically think about Yeshua. We automatically think about John 1 through 4. What's that say?
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. All came to be through him, and without him not even one came to be that came to be. In him was life, and the life was the light of men.
Okay, so we see the way that Yochanan describes the word. The word, he's talking to us about Yeshua, right? And so if we understand Yeshua to actually be the word of Elohim, and then we see after these things, after he already has this meeting with Melchizedek, and then now it says after that happens, this other thing happens. The word of Yahweh came to Abraham. We could understand this meeting also to be kind of a continuation of what we've already seen in the previous chapter. When we think about Yeshua, there's many places where we're able to look at what he says, what's said of him, that leads us to believe and understand that he existed in a way prior to his physical manifestation, right? Let's look at Revelation. Look at Revelation 13. Revelation 13. Revelation 13. Look at verse number 8.
Revelation 13 and 8. And all those dwelling on the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life of the slain Lamb from the foundation of the world shall worship him.
The Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. How in the world was the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world if he didn't even come to be until like after the world happened? I mean, we could say that the plan of the Most High was so, and the things that he says are so, are in fact so. Maybe he had a plan from the foundation, and then ever since the plan was envisioned in his spiritual mind, and it was just as good as being done. But also, we could think about the fact that Yeshua, who was one with the Father from the beginning, as the Word, we can understand Yeshua being outside of the physical representation that we came to understand him as, in terms of the man Yeshua that walked the earth. And so when we think about this, again, this word of Elohim, the word of Yahweh that comes and that came as it is, as it says in Genesis 15 to Abraham. If we look at that there, hold on one second. Interesting. Let's pull up our tools over here. The word came to Abraham. The word Haya. To exist, that is to be or become, to come to pass. To Avram, right? These words, again, with these words, I don't of the words just popped up in his mind, or if he had some type of meeting. There's something else that happens later on, but we see that. Oh, also we see that this happened. It says it came to Avram in a vision. But he wasn't asleep. It don't talk about him going to sleep yet. It talks about him being asleep later, right? But this vision, this thing that he's able to see. Here, let's look at this. This thing that he's able to see, this here word here, machazeh, a vision, which is from chazah, to gaze. It literally means to gaze at mentally. He had a particular perception of something, right? He contemplated with pleasure, specifically. He had this vision, this prophecy. He was able to see this thing, right? But again, these words, this word that came to him, whether we think about it as being words, a particular understanding that he started to have, these words that came to him in this vision from the Almighty were giving him not only words of encouragement, but also preparation for what was about to take place. One of the kind of important pivots that happened in the life of Avram. And so this word that came to Avram at this time said to him, do not fear. Do not be afraid, Avram. It says, do not fear. Do not be afraid. Let's think about this here, because this is not something that the word of Yahweh is speaking to Avram that is isolated unto just Avram. Because of the fact that there is a particular relationship that is beginning to exist between Avram and the Most High. Now Avram is able to participate and benefit from some of the things that go along with being a servant of the Most High. And one of those benefits is the fact that you do not need to be afraid. Fear not, he says. Fear not. Yahweh, to fear. Morally, to revere. Causatively, to frighten. To be a fright. Dreadful. Fearful. So on and so forth. So we have two different aspects in terms of literal fear, fright. Also, reverence, right? Sometimes when we think about the fear of Yahweh, we like to isolate that to reverence, right? People might say, well, he doesn't want for you to be frightened of him. He wants for you to reverence.
People like to make that distinction.
I am not one who likes to make that distinction, right? I, understand that, the Hebrew language is interesting. That is giving us this understanding of this word, and all of these things kind of coexist with one another simultaneously, right? We have a fear for the Most High. And along with that fear comes a reverence, right? But here he's speaking to Avram and saying, do not fear. He obviously is not referring to your fear, reverence, respect, uprightness towards him, because we know that in fact is the beginning of wisdom. He's not referring to himself in regards to not being afraid. What he's referring to is other things, right? Do not fear for other things. That's what he's speaking about, right? When we think about, what fear brings about in us, in regards to the Almighty, it moves us into a relationship with the Almighty. Fear does, in relation to Him. But when that fear is placed elsewhere, that thing becomes our God, right? You've made the thing mightier than Elohim, right? And so he's helping for Avram and likewise us to understand a particular dynamic of our relationship with him. Do not be afraid, parentheses, of other things, because when you are fearful of these other things, you are causing for those other things to be in the Most High's place. Close parentheses. Right? Let's look at some things that Yeshua has to say, because Yeshua agrees with these words, probably because he was there. He was there, right? He's the manifestation of the words that are being spoken. Let's go over to Matthew 6. Matthew 6. Let's see. 25. Start reading there. 25.
Because of this, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than the food, and the body more than the clothing? Look at the birds of the heaven, for they neither sow nor reap, nor gather into storehouses, yet your heavenly Father does feed them. Are you not worth more than they? And which of you by worrying is able to add 1 cubit to his lifespan? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you that even Shalomo is in all his esteem was not dressed like one of these. And but if Elohim so clothes the grass of the field, which exists today and tomorrow, is thrown into the furnace, how much more you, O you of little belief? Do not worry then, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For all of these the nations seek for, and your Elohim and your heavenly Father knows that you need all of these.
Okay, so that's good right there. So we see in verse 31, he says, do not worry then. We see in verse 25, he says, do not worry. Therefore, I say unto you, look in the King James, take no thought. Take no thought. The word here we want to look at is this word here, merimnao, Greek word over here, which means to be anxious about, or some translations say careful or take thought, as it says over in the King James, right? Take no thought. It actually, that word actually means to be anxious, right? It means to be worried about it. The word anxious, that speaks about anxiety, is a word that means to concern. It means concern or solicitude respecting some event, future or uncertain, which disturbs the mind and keeps it in a state of painful uneasiness. It expresses more than uneasiness or disturbance, and even more than trouble and solicitude. It usually springs from fear or serious apprehension of evil, and involves a suspense respecting an event, and often a perplexity of mind to know how to shape our conduct. Anxiety, this thing is fear, right? So it's interesting when we look at Yeshua, who deals with over here talking to these people not to be anxious, take no thought, fear about things that are going on in your life. How you gonna eat? I'm supposed to drink. I'm supposed to go to the store. It costs so much. How am I gonna get some clothes? My shoes is worn out and I need some new ones. How am I going to get the things that I need in life? Do you think, he goes on to say, do you think that the birds in the heavens have these problems that you got? They don't put no seeds in the ground, but they eat all they want. And these things are provided to them from the Most High. The Father, Heavenly Father, feeds them. How much more so will he, in fact, feed you or provide for you the things that you need in your life? Not just basic needs, but the things that you need in your life. So therefore, when he speaks to Avram and says, fear not, don't be afraid, he's speaking in general. Don't be afraid of the things that you're going to be facing. Don't be anxious about these things that are going to be going on in your situation. First Peter. Let's look at First Peter. First Peter. First Peter 5. First Peter chapter 5. We might as well go up here in 6 and 7.
Humble yourselves then under the mighty hand of Elohim, so that he exalts you in due time, casting all your worry upon him, for he is concerned about you.
Casting all your cares, casting all your thoughts, casting all your worries, casting all your fears, casting all your, it says care over here, your fear upon him, upon Messiah, upon Elohim. because he is concerned about you, right? So when you have anxiousness, when you have solicitude, when you have anxiety and uneasiness of mind because of real things that are going on in your situation, he says, cast your worries upon him because he's concerned about you.
Mhm.
This is the same thing that he's saying over here to Avram.
Mhm.
Fear not. Don't matter what happens. It don't matter what comes about. It don't matter what situation you find yourself in, because you, Avram, are a follower of the Most High.
I was thinking about that more you get some he is your defense. He is my defense. I shall not be moved.
Yes, exactly.
You know, he's not. If he's your shield, then it don't really matter what's coming.
No, right? He didn't even get to. Well, we didn't even get to the why of it all. It's just at this point, it's just a declaration from the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
Fear not.
Oh, it's like a command.
It's almost like you have to understand the declaration first. The second part is the faith part, which we didn't get to yet, right? But he's simply at this point stating, "Fear not." Read Philippians 4:6.
Philippians 4:6. Do not worry at all, but in every matter by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to Elohim.
It said, "Don't be anxious at all. Do not worry at all. Do not have solicitude at all. Be careful for nothing, because you're able to go before Elohim and present your prayer and petitions with thanksgiving because of the fact that you know that your prayers and petitions will be in fact heard by Elohim. And whatever things that he allows for you to experience, go through, he is going to be there with you. Right? And so we're able to see over here that, this thought is consistent, whether we talk about the word of Yahweh being spoken to Abraham or Messiah speaking it to his disciples, or his disciples, continuing with this message here, right? But this is all just a declaration, right? He didn't say why. Well, until he says, the next verse, right? Let's see. Because I am a shield. I am a shield to you. I am a shield. I am a Magen, a shield, a protector, right? A defender, right? The scaly hide of a crocodile. I am to you, right? Yes, that's what the word means. A shield, right? A buckler. Figuratively, it's a protector. Also, the scaly hide of a crocodile. Okay, and so we think about the Most High over here, the way that he's describing himself to Avram through the word of Elohim. He says to him, I am a shield. I am a shield. I am one who will protect you.
Mm.
It's interesting when we think about the Most High and the protection that He provides. Let's look over at Psalms. The book of Psalms. There's many places where the protection of the Most High is expressed to us. Look at Psalms 84. I thought this was interesting here. Psalms 84. Read verses. Start reading at verse 9.
O Elohim, see our shield, and look upon the face of your anointed. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 days. I have chosen rather to be a doorkeeper in the house of my Elohim than to dwell in the tents of the wrong. For Yahweh Elohim is a sun and a shield.
This is our verse right here. Read this again.
11?
Yeah.
It says, for Yahweh Elohim is a sun and a shield. Yahweh gives favor and esteem. He withholds no good matter from those who walk blamelessly.
Okay, very good. It's interesting. We see over here where it says that Elohim is a sun and a shield, right? And so, again, when we looked at what it is that the Most High, by way of the word of Elohim, the word of Yahweh speaking to Abraham, refers to him saying that I am a shield, right? And so when we think about the idea of that shield, we see that idea of a protector. Please do something about this. Please, the Most High is a protector of His people, right? This verse is interesting because it says that He is a sun and a shield, not a S-O-N, but an S-U-N, right? So not only is He a protector, but when we think about the sun illuminates, right? The sun provides. The sun brings light. Here, let's look over at 27 and 1. What's that say?
Psalms 27.
Psalms 27.
Says, Yahweh is my light and my deliverance. Whom shall I fear? Yahweh is the refuge of my life. Of whom shall I be dread?
Okay, Yahweh is my light and my deliverance. So when we think about Yahweh, the fact that He is my light, when we go back over to Psalms 84, talking about the sun, He is the epitome of light. Not only is He my light, but all light originates from Him. He is the ultimate illuminator, the ultimate provider who protects, right? It's interesting when we think about the sun in the sky, it's understandable why, people throughout time, started to worship this thing, right? Because, it provides warmth, right? It keeps the ecosystem going, right? It causes things to grow, right? It does all of these wonderful things. The sun does, right?
You can be outside and walk around.
Yeah.
Say when the sun go down, sun go big.
Right. And so light guides, it leads, it reveals, right? It illuminates, it enlightens, light does, right? And so again, when we think about what the Most High is, he's all of those things. The Most High is, right? The Most High is all of those things. He's the source of light. And so the reason why we're able to not be afraid, we're able to not fear, we're able to not have anxiety about things, because the creator of light, the source of light, is leading us, is guiding us, and he is protecting us. So when we think about Yahweh and who he is, the fact that he is able to give us light, guidance, leading, right? He causes us to, he gives us these things, but he also keeps us away from other things, such as distress, right? Because there's distress in darkness. You're in darkness, you don't know what's going on, right? I can't see in front of me. Where's the candle that I can light so that I can see? The lights go out. You're moving around like, how can I move around? But if we have light, we have no reason to distress, because we're able to see. Things have been, your sight has been illuminated, right? Perplexity is removed, right? Because you have vision, you're able to see. Because you've been brought out of darkness, right, into his marvelous light. And so when we think about who the Most High is, it gives us all of these reasons why we're not to fear. And he adds to that he, in fact, is a shield. He's a provider. He is a protector of his people. Go ahead.
I just think about like when you have a guide to kind of take you through a place, it's so much it just makes it like safer, I would say, or easier, like
both of those things.
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
I just think about even rapids, and like you think about like if you're the people, water might look calm right here, but just down yonder, there's a waterfall, that type of a thing, where you have a guide to actually tell you, or to lead you and direct you in where you're going.
Yeah, a guide. Yes, I remember when we went on vacation, and we couldn't pay somebody to take us to Kingston. We could not find someone that would take us to Kingston, Jamaica. Too dangerous. Don't go there. Somebody, you won't make it back. Like we had money, and we couldn't pay these people to take us there until we found the right guide. He took us there. He put our minds at ease. Don't worry, it's not that bad. It's not. In fact, it's not bad at all. The bad places, there's nothing to see there anyway.
I'm not gonna say you.
There's no reason to go there. So you're fine. So he took us where we needed to go, and we had a lovely time because we had the right guide. He was able to move away all of the darkness that these people were putting in our minds, trying to keep us away from going to this place. And he brought illumination to the situation. And so the same thing is true when we think about the Most High. He's saying to Abraham, do not fear. Do not fear. I am your shield. I am going to protect you. Okay, so he experienced this, Avram did, to a degree. He experienced this to a degree But there was things that were going to be happening, that was going to happen, that Avram needed to know, preparing himself to go on this unknown journey, that I'm with you and I'm going to protect you no matter what happens. And so we see that with Avram, that his faith needed to grow. His faith needed to grow. Let's look over at Romans. Speaking about,
I guess
the
if
growing
you
of faith.
already had faith, then he won't have to tell him anything, because he'd be like, I believe.
He definitely had a measure of faith.
Yes.
But his faith needed to grow. We saw that he lacked in faith when he gave his wife away, right? But he was strong in faith when he went and saved his nephew, right?
Like two different people.
Right. When you look at Avram, his life is interesting because he has these layers to himself where he, at one moment he operates in great faith. And then even after, when he meets with the king of Sodom, he says, I'm not gonna give these people, they're not gonna make me rich. Nobody's gonna be able to say that these wicked people made me rich. He's giving all the glory to the Most High. And so we see that he has these he gives us these glimpses of faith, but then he also, shows us where he needs to grow in faith, which caused me to want to think about Romans. Let's look at Romans 1. Read verse, let's see here. Sixteen, 17.
Oh, Romans.
Romania.
16 and 17 says, For I am not ashamed of the good news of Messiah, for it is the power of Elohim for deliverance to everyone who believes, to the Yehudi first, and also to the Greek.
It is the power. The gospel, right? The gospel of Messiah. It is the power. Keep on.
For in it,
the gospel of Messiah,
righteousness of Elohim is revealed from belief to belief.
From faith to faith. As faith progresses, you begin with a measure of faith, and faith in its progression, the righteousness of Elohim is revealed. The character of the Most High is revealed as faith progresses. The more you exercise, manifest your faith, the more the righteousness of Elohim is revealed to you. The more that you walk in faith, the more you understand that the Most High is actually there with you, walking with you, protecting you, and manifesting himself and his power over your life and over your situation. And so when we see, with just like the way that the apostle is describing this idea of being proud and proclaiming this message of Messiah, understanding that having a right understanding of what the essence of this message is empowering, and it brings about deliverance in you and whoever accepts this message. And as we move from faith to faith, as we increase in faith, as we continue to walk in faith, in steadfastness, in conviction, right, in reliance on Messiah, as we continue on in it, our faith grows. And so when we think about Abraham, who had this situation, after the situation, he has this meeting with Melchizedek. And then after the meeting with Melchizedek, he has this meeting with these people. And then he has another meeting with the Most High, who's preparing him for what it is that's getting ready to happen in his life that he don't know about. But I think even more so, he's preparing him even for what he's about to say to him, even more so. Because he's about to drop something real heavy on him. In this meeting here that's happening even right now. He says to him, your reward shall be very great. Your reward shall be very great. The reward that he gains from continuing to walk in faith. This word, when you think about this word here, let's go back over to Genesis, Bereshit 15. Your reward is exceedingly great. It says, verse 15. Your payment. Payment of contract. Well, he don't know what the contract is as of yet, but the reward of the contract is going to be very great. He's about to share with Avram a contract, but the payment of the contract, he's telling them beforehand the wages, the price of, the benefit, the compensation of this contract is going to be very great, right? Likewise, when we think about the fact that when we just think about what we just looked at over here in Romans chapter 1, right? When we think about the fact that this understanding that we see over here, this idea of not being ashamed or proclaiming, being, fully expressing this good news, this is something that we experience, right? And once we begin to walk in this experience, the righteousness of Elohim, who in fact is Messiah, the righteousness of Elohim actually is Messiah, continues to be revealed to us. And so we're learning more and more of the character of Messiah. We're learning more about the character of our Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach. And the more we learn, the more we become like him, the more light is shined in our situation, the more we trust in all of the things that he has done and provides for us, the more he reveals to us that our reward, our benefits are indeed great. And so it's interesting when we look at the apostle, the way that he speaks about the good news and our relationship with Messiah and the benefits that come along with our connection to Messiah are pretty similar to what we see with the word of Yahweh being expressed to Avram. the same thing is true. The reason why Avram is in fact able to not be afraid is because he's able to understand that the Most High is going to be there with him when he goes. The reason why for our the Most High just to be able to say that I am your shield and this be something that's comforting to Avram is because he has a understanding of who the Most High is, where he's able to just say a thing, and that thing that he's saying, Avram understanding the truth of what he's saying, is able to cause him to have uh, strength in his faith moving forward. Okay, let's keep on going. Let's look over here at read for us again verse 2. Genesis 15 verse 2.
And Abram said, Master Yahweh, what would you give me? Seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eleazar of Damascus.
What are you going to give me? He's trying to understand, right? Your reward is going to be great. How going to be great? I can't even have no babies. How great could it even be? We have to understand that the culture of the day is heavily connected to the ability to continue one's house. Okay, when you think about the word son in the Hebrew, it literally means to continue the house. To continue the house. You want for your house to be continued. How can one think? How can one even think that his life can be blessed if his house is not able to be continued? Right? When we think about the thought, the idea over here, Avraham, he has this issue. The Most High said he will bless him, and he can't even understand how this could even be. I mean, well, I guess since you haven't given me an offspring, my servant Eleazar will be the heir of my house. He'll be there. He puts this forward, which when we think about this, this is a form of doubt. This, in fact, is a form of doubt that we see in Avram. It's a form of fear. He's fearful about, he's anxious about the unknown future. He don't know what's going to happen. How you going to manifest this thing that you're speaking to me about when I can't even fathom how you can make this thing happen? I can't understand how great a reward could be that you could give me if I can't even have just the basic blessings that someone could ask for. The continuance of my house. I have to have this trusted servant of mine that you've given me to be my heir. And so again, we're able to see, again, this is why I think that the story of Avram and his life, it shows the perfect picture of the maturation of faith. Avram is not some superhero, that he's this perfect person that walks around, with this flawless life that we're able to look to and see all of his magnificentness, right? He has things going on in his situation. Avram does. And we're able to see them, but not only able to see them, but we're able to see him move through these things and past them, right? And so he learns, Avram does, about this blessing that he's going to receive. He learns about it over time, right? He don't get everything, the whole understanding all at once, right? But again, we're able to see, that he gradually grows in it, right? And so when we look over in verse 5, let's go back over here. If we look in verse 5, read verse 5 for us here. Hold on a second. Let me just scroll down some. Verse 5. Read verse 5 again.
And he brought him outside and said, "Look now towards the heavens."
Okay, hold on one second. I just want to say that we see when Avram later, where he goes to sleep. This vision that he's experiencing with the word of Yahweh, he's awake. He's not asleep, right? He's not having a dream. He's awake. It says in verse 5, he brought him outside. He's walking around. He's conscious of what's going on, and he's having this visitation with the word of Yahweh. He said he brought him outside. He was, I guess he could be asleep. He could be asleep. He could be floating in the sleep realm, and he brought him, magically outside. I think that
you're talking about like sleepwalked outside.
He could have sleepwalked. Okay, yeah, he could have sleepwalked outside. He could be, fully asleep, and he's having this vision in a dream. It don't seem like it though. It seems like he's awake because it says he brought him outside.
And they told him to look somewhere.
Right.
Since
So it's interesting. Some of the commentators, the ancient commentators, would say that Avram at this point was brought. He was lifted up into the heavens.
Oh wow.
He was lifted up into the heavenlies so that he could look around and look at all of the stars, right? Because you can look up from where you are and you could see, but they put forth this idea that he was lifted up into the heavenlies to literally count the stars, right? But
probably a lot more. You probably could see a lot more stars back then with no pollution anywhere.
Right,
Or
no
lights.
smog, no lights, right? All of these things, right? But it's interesting that it says he brought him outside, look toward the heavens and count the stars if you're able to count them. He already knows you can't count the stars. You can't even count them.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point that he's showing while he's awake, looking outside. Go ahead, read that for me. 5, verse 5.
Look now toward the heavens and count the stars if you are able to count them. And he said to him, "So are your seed."
So are your seed. You think because what you're currently looking at, what you're currently able to comprehend, your current situation, when you look at it, it looks a particular way. Meanwhile, the Most High has declared a truth over your situation, and because you're only able to see what is going on according to your own current vision, you're not able to see the fullness of what it is that the Most High is declaring in your situation. He said, look at the stars and try to count them. You can't even begin to understand, to contemplate
Comprehend.
what it is that the Most High is going to be doing in your situation. But he said he was going to do it. He said that he was going to be a provider for you. And he said that he was going to protect. You know, what greater way is Yahweh able to be a shield for Abraham than to protect his house and the continuance of it? He literally swore to him that he was going to continue his house when he said he was going to be a shield. And then he doubled down on it and literally says it, your seed is going to be greater than the stars in the heavens. You're not even going to be able to count, he says. And then that did it. That just did it for Avram. He believed.
Oh yeah, they would just say.
That's the thing that took him over the edge. And he believed in Yahweh, it says, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. Avram believed the Most High. He's beginning to be able to see what in fact his reward is going to be. He's learning more about this blessing that he's going to receive. Okay, let's drop down. So we see that he puts together this offering, this thing that's going to be used for the covenant, for the contract, that he just previously learned what the reward, the payment of the contract was. And then now we get down to verse 12. It says, read verse 12 again.
And it came to be when the sun was going down and a deep sleep fell upon Abram.
Oh, wait. Well, read 10 again, because this is again speaking to the fact that, what previously happened with this visitation of the word of Yahweh. He's awake when this is happening. He's moving around, because read verse 10 and 11.
And he took all these to him and cut them in the middle and placed each half opposite the other, but he did not cut the birds.
11.
And the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, and Abram drove them away.
Unless this is talking about some spiritual birds that's falling down in a dream, that's trying to spiritually do something with these animals that Avram has cut in half, except for the birds that he cut in half. Unless there's this thing happening spiritually, I'm forced to understand this from a physical perspective, and that these birds of prey are trying to eat the carcasses that he has physically laying there, and he chases those things away. Right? He's awake. He's not dreaming. He's experiencing some type of visitation from the Most High.
Do people really think that it happened or something?
I don't know what people believe, but I know in John it says that he says in John that no man here. Just look at it. Let me see what verse it is. I think it's 5. Read John 5:36 and 37.
But I have a greater witness than that of Yohanan, for the works that the Father gave me to accomplish. The works that I do bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me. And the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time nor seen his form.
He said to these people he's talking to, you have never heard his voice at any time, nor seen his face, the Most High. You never heard his voice. You never seen his face. But he talked to many people, the Most High did. Whose voice did you hear? I mean, you could say that based on 38, and you do not have his word staying in you because you don't believe him who sent him. You could say that he said that these particular people never heard his voice because they don't believe. If they did believe, then they would be able to hear his voice. But I think also it's something for us to understand that Yeshua actually being the word of Yahweh, when we hear the voice of Yahweh, what we hear is Yeshua. And so looking backwards, when we think about what's going on in Genesis and Bereshit, chapter 15. Oh, sorry, what did Exodus? Genesis chapter 15. When we see what's going on over here with Abraham, he's literally speaking with Messiah, Yeshua. And read verse 12.
And it came to be when the sun was going down and a deep sleep fell upon Abram.
Now he goes to sleep. He was awake all that time. Now he goes to sleep.
That a frightening great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abram, no.
Hold on. Let's just deal with that real quick. So it says that a deep sleep went on to Abraham. A deep sleep. When you look at some of these, here, let's look at this here. Verse 12. A deep sleep is this word here. Lethargy, or by implication, a trance, a deep sleep. Deep sleep, trance. A supernaturally induced state of very heavy sleep. When you think about the idea of a trance, right? Because this is kind of what it's the way that this is being described. You know, he's now in this deep sleep. He's in this state where he's able to fully receive the rest of this message that the Most High is giving without any type of interruptions or things, distractions, where he's only just receiving this message. This is probably the most important part of what it is that the Most High has to bring to him. So he go ahead and allows for him to actually fall into this deep sleep. And it says that he has this frightening great darkness falls upon him. And so again, we see this idea of fear. This word is terror, fright, dread, horror, terribleness. And so nothingness, right? And so it caused me really just to think about the fact that he has this just extreme emptiness around, where the only thing that he's able to comprehend is the words that are about to be spoken, just so nothing can be confused or misconstrued, in this situation. And again, we think about frightening fear as it relates to the Most High. Again, it's a very important component to our understanding of who the Most High is, our fear, understanding the greatness and the severity of every word that is spoken by the Most High. So again, we look over here at this verse 12 and we see that there is this absolute dread, it says, that comes over Avram in this deep sleep that he's in, where he's able to hear these words that are about to be spoken to Avram. And so let's look at 13 through 15.
And he said to Abram, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But the nation whom they serve I am going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possession.
And 15.
Now as for you, you are to go to your fathers in peace. You are to be buried at a good old age.
Okay, very good. So we see that when we look over here, that the Most High is going to definitely be dealing with the descendants of Abraham, because he ends off and says, as for you, you're going back to the fathers in peace. You're going to be buried at good old age. You're going to live a wonderful life. It's going to be great for you. Everything's going to be good. But your descendants, they're going to have some issues. They're going to be great, your descendants are, but they're going to be strangers in the land that's not theirs. They're going to be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years, it says. They're going to serve Abad, it says here. Let's look at this. Verse 13, if I can find my cursor here. They are your seed, strangers in the land. They are going to serve, abad, work, serve, till, enslaved, be enslaved, bondage, bondmen, bond servants, compelled to do things in this land that is not their own for 400 years. Not only are they going to be abaded, not only are they going to be servants in this place, it says, and they, the people that they are being in service to, shall afflict them. Shall afflict them. Oh, where's my cursor here? Afflict, ana, them. The idea of looking down, browbeat, to depress, to abase, to afflict, to chasten, to deal hardly with, defile even, for 400 years in this place. And so it's interesting that we see with this message that Avram receives that he must be put into this deep sleep in order to even be given, right? Because he's talking to him, he's giving him all of these things. He could have just said it to him while he was awake. But he chose this portion of the message for him to be in this deep sleep, and he gives it to him. Again, speaking about the fact that his descendants, who he already said was going to be great, they're going to have to serve and afflict these people for 400 years. Okay?
I think that word is trance, right?
What word?
When he talks about his man's sleep.
Yes. Yeah, it's a trance.
I think he might have showed it to him.
He was in a trance.
Oh, you mean you talking about in the trance?
Yeah, because that's the only reason why wouldn't he do it while he was woke? He was showing him all these other things, telling him all these other things.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? When you think about the idea of these words coming to him being in this trance, sometimes if that's an interesting thought, because if all he had was the knowledge of the thing that was going to happen, it don't seem that it would be as weighty if he didn't have a visual to go along with it, to actually see some type of representation of this thing. I think would be even more. And this is what, when you think about when you have these dreams and things, many times in a dream we have the visual part, but the words might be missing. But it's telling us about the words, but it's not telling us about the visual part. But I think that's an interesting thought, that if he's in this trance, he's in this deep sleep, there's something probably that he's seeing, things happening that he's actually seeing, but it's not a mystery where he got to think about what it is that he's seeing. He has the words to go along with it. He has the understanding and the weight. And, that also helps with verse 14, where it's verse 15, where it's almost like it chills it out. Like, now you've seen this terrible thing. I've given you the understanding of this terrible thing that's going to happen to your descendants, but don't worry, you'll have a wonderful life. You'll see none of that. You're going back to the fathers, and you'll live a ripe old age, and everything will be fine. That's a plausible, totally possible thing that he actually visually saw what is going to happen to his descendants. This 400 years. And so it's interesting, I always think about the fact that there's two things that we see over here that are associated with this 400 years. You have this servitude and this affliction. These two things, the servitude and the affliction. And so when we look at this thing over here, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a literal 400 years? Or are we talking about 4 generations? Because sometimes a generation is described by 100 years. So we're talking about 4 generations. Or are we talking about just this big round number that is given to us for emphasis sake to let us know that it's going to be a long time? I feel like it could be any one of those things, because First of all, when you think about the literal aspect, 400 years, if we just think about Egypt, for instance, Israel going into Egypt, it's hard to calculate 400 years in Egypt when you do the math. First of all, when Israel gets to Egypt, the first part is good, right? When you got Joseph, being part of the government, he's living good at first.
High on the hog.
He's living high on the hog. I don't know if it was hog. He's living high off of the cow. Right? He had all of the luxuries, and then it went south after, right? And so there's a break if you think about the idea of living in servitude and affliction for the entirety, of this 400 years. If you think about as many do, if you think about the way that you're able to potentially get to 400 years, just think about the time of the covenant being given here up to the leaving of Egypt. Because when you think about the time that they go in to Egypt in servitude, it seems like you only really dealing with a couple hundred years when you count it up. And so it kind of caused me to really think about the fact that we're given this number, but I'm not sure if it's a number that we're supposed to look at and say that, it's this exact number, but it's, kind of this big number that's kind of outside of the scope of a single generation, as if to say there's going to be multiple generations that are going to experience these hardships. Again, when you think about Egypt, Israel coming out of Egypt, you do have kind of this piece that's at the end where it says that that in 14, the nation whom they serve, I'm going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possessions. Right? That's what literally happened with the situation with that's what literally happened with the situation with Israel. They were judged. Egypt was judged by the Most High, and they came out with great possessions. But again, the problem is that we don't have this 400 years, if that's even what this scripture is trying to tell us. If it's trying to tell us connecting the time period with the servitude and the affliction. It just seems like the way that it's given there that those things are connected, when in fact maybe they're not connected.
Now, do you think if he was awake, he would say, well, why do they have to be afflicted for so long before?
I'm sure that another reason why he was in this trance is so that his mind wouldn't be going. Because when he was awake,
stop it. He was asking questions.
He's adding to it, like, oh, well, wait a second. You trying to sit up here and talk to me about these blessings, and all I got is Eleazar.
Let me just put on the
And so he does away with the ability for his mind to even add interjections to the situation. Avram has perfect understanding of what this is. We have the problem because we're not there. So we have all of these thoughts in our minds. He knew what it was that the Most High was saying to him and had perfect understanding. We look at it and we trying to figure it out. Again, when we think about, then when you add 16, then where it says, then in the fourth generation, they will return here, for the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet complete. And so when you think about the Amorites, right? When you think about the people that are in the land, right? It's almost like Israel had to go through what they went through for the time that they went through it, so that the iniquity of the Amorite could come to its fullness. And so by the time Israel even makes it over into the land, that becomes the time that it's time for them to go in and dispossess the people that's there. And so in other words, all of these things kind of are working in concert with one another simultaneously. The Most High is dealing with Israel. You have the mishap of the spies going in, which causes the journey in the wilderness the last 40 years, right? So that's to say that Israel couldn't have just came right out of Egypt and went over into the land, because probably, most likely, the iniquity of the Amorite was not yet complete. They still had more wickedness to do over there, and they had to fortify their place outside of any type of salvation over there.
Yeah.
The Most High knew that when Israel goes over there, that he was going to call for all of them to be killed. And so they had to bear witness to the fact that the Most High is killing a wicked nation. And I'm sure that there probably was a little bit of righteousness over there that had to get itself worked out to further justify the rightness of the Most High. Because all his doings are righteous. And so, again, we think about this verse over verse 16, we're talking about the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet complete. It's time for this people to be eradicated once they get to a particular place of iniquity. And so, again, when we look at, the timing of it all, I think that it's interesting when we think about, this whole thing with this 400 years. Again, thinking about it in terms of, from a prophetic standpoint, right? When you think about it from a prophetic standpoint, outside of Israel, coming out of Egypt, going into the land for the first time to possess it. Because now at this point in the situation where we have an understanding that the fulfillment of the thing that the Most High speaks to Abraham, the fulfillment of that did happen with Israel going into the land for the first time. When we think about the total fulfillment of what it is that Abraham is being promised over here, is something that includes Messiah. That hasn't happened even yet. That deals with his people that are in fact living this this time of affliction and servitude, even as we speak. When we think about what it is, I want to kind of end up over in Galatians, and we thinking more about the fulfillment of the covenant that is being given to Abraham. Because again, when we look at the fact that Abraham is given this covenant by the Most High, and understanding that this thing that he's speaking to him about, we can think about it in terms of what happened just a few hundred years after his life. But it seems like if we understand what the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant is, the fulfillment of it isn't the people of Israel walking into the promised land after the 40 years. Because those people wasn't as big as the stars.
They count.
You could count them, right? It was like 600,000 people. It was like a lot of people, but you could count them. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. Every time I think about, Three River Stadium only holding like 70,000 people.
Three Rivers.
I mean, whatever it's called.
This one, Acrisure.
Acrisure, yeah. Acrisure Stadium is like 70-something thousand people. When you're in there, it seems like a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And so you talking about, what percent is 70,000 of 600 and something thousand? I thought you were gonna bust it out real quick.
No.
But it's just a percentage, right? But you can count it though. But he said that I'm going to make your seed is going to be greater than what you're able to physically count out here when you look at the stars. It's a number that you can't number, right? Just like when we think about in the book of Revelation, where it tells you, he said that he's going to protect the 144,000 Israel. And outside of the 144,000, there's going to be this multitude that you're not going to be able to count. Right? And so when we think about these things in terms of the fulfillment of the Abrahamic, the Abrahamic covenant, it's interesting because when we think about that covenant that he makes with Abraham, he gives him an understanding of who the beneficiaries are of the covenant, right? It's going to be his seed. He said, you're going to live a great life, and you're going to live and you're going to die, and your life's going to be good. But the beneficiaries of this covenant that you're making with me right now, and the participants are these people that don't even exist yet, but they're coming from you though. And so when we think about the covenant made with Abraham, and even if we move forward into the Mosaic covenant still isn't the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant. Because when we see Israel going into the land, when they receive the Mosaic covenant, there's still a people that could be numbered. We know who they are. We know how many came out of Egypt, and we know how many went into the land. But when we think about what happens with the new covenant, now we're speaking about the beneficiaries and the participants of the Abrahamic covenant and the fulfillment of it. So let's look over at Galatians 3. Galatians 3. Galatians 3. Start reading read for us. Let's see, just read a little bit at a time. Let's start read, just read the 15.
15. Brothers, as a man, I say it.
Hold on. Read that.
Brothers, as a man, I say it. A covenant, even though it is man's, yet if it is confirmed, no one sets it aside or adds to it.
Okay, when you think about a covenant, he said, I speak after the manner of men. I'm talking to you. Paul is talking to you after the manner of men. As far as a man is concerned, when a man make a covenant, even though it's a man, even though he's this temporal being, when this covenant is confirmed, there's nothing that could move it to the side, and there's nothing that could add to it. That's what he's saying, right? So he's speaking to you in the mind of covenants. He's using this covenantal language, understanding that man is temporal, but the idea of covenants is it goes forever. It can't be disannulled, and you can't add to it very easily. Right? You got to go back in and rework it, take some special measures if you want to change things within it.
Both parties have to agree.
As it stands, is something that's unchangeable. Okay, 16. Verse 16.
Says, but the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Messiah.
I think it's interesting because we have to understand who Paul is when we read this over here. Because when we go back, he's not lying. It doesn't say seeds. But he just told us that his seed was going to be great and greater than the stars in the sky. He told us that. If we go back here, let's just go back because I don't want to just sit there and just be talking. Genesis 15. He says, Abraham said, you giving me no seed. I don't got one seed. Right? He don't have no seed. Eleazar not your seed. He brought him outside and told him to look at all of the stars. So is your seed. So stars is plural, but seed is singular. But is he just talking about one seed though? Then over here in Galatians, he says there's not multiple seeds, is one seed. He's not lying, but we got to remember something about Paul. Being the Pharisee that he is, sometimes in your exposition of things, he's saying this thing as it is a literal understanding of what is being said. He literally didn't say seeds. But in the context, he's talking about, he's talking in the context of what is said to Abraham. He's talking about multiple seeds. Now he's working it in here. Paul is in terms of bringing about the understanding of how all of the seeds are going to be blessed by one seed in particular. But again, when we go back, when he says seed singular, he is literally talking about seed plural though. And so I feel like he's doing a thing here, a kind of this expository thing that he's doing here when he's talking about Messiah as the singular seed that brings about the manifestation of the fulfillment of the promise. As these people, these teachers of the law do. If you sit up here and look at some of these different writings and things by these these ancient teachers, and we'll see even later on in these verses here, many times when we look at these words that are used, there's some kind of, I don't want to say, when you think about authors and writers, and them having like a creative license when they're writing these things. Not saying that it's off or a lie, because he literally didn't use a singular word. I mean, a plural word. He literally did use a singular word, and he brings that part, that aspect out to magnify the position of Messiah. But again, when we think about the participants, the beneficiaries of the covenant, you're definitely talking about a multitude of individuals. And so, again, when we think about Paul's writings and how interesting at times, his rhetorical methods are, and as we go further down, we'll see other examples of that. But I just wanted to, bring that up just to cause us to begin to think about the things that, that we look at, that there are things that the writer uses, kind of methods that are used that we have to think about when anybody's saying anything. And until we look at these things properly, sometimes you might come to some different kinds of thoughts about what it is that's being said, especially, again, when we come further down, when he says these other things, and we're able to kind of balance these things, as you move forward. But I just thought that it was interesting when you look at what he says over in 16. He's kind of doing this kind of a thing with the words to bring about a truth that is in fact the truth, that the fact that the singular seed, in other words, Isaac, was the one seed that came from Abraham. And from that one seed, came another seed and another seed and another seed, all the way down to Messiah, who in fact, is the savior of his people, the eventual savior. But again, we're dealing with a multitude, right? Which is the recipients, the beneficiaries, the participants of this covenant that he brings. What's this say here? Abraham's seed and recipients of the promise have put on Messiah and are one in Messiah. The seed is one seed. Okay, so let's keep on going here. Let's read further, verse 17. Galatians chapter 3.
Says, now this I say, Torah that came 430 years later does not annul a covenant, annul a covenant previous.
Don't do away with.
Yeah.
Don't cross out.
A covenant previously confirmed by Elohim in Messiah.
Go ahead.
So as to do away with the promise.
Okay, so there was a promise that was made. There was a covenant that was made. And then this other covenant came, Torah. Now, again, Paul uses these rhetorical methods over here. Torah, when he says Torah, he's not using that to mean law. He's using that word Torah to mean the Mosaic covenant. That came 400 years later after this Abrahamic covenant was given. But that covenant coming don't annul the previous covenant that was made. But he said does not annul a covenant previously confirmed by Elohim in Messiah. And so again, we have this other covenant, as I said, this other covenant that came, the Mosaic covenant. That covenant that come, it don't do away with the fact that the Most High told Abraham that he was going to cause for his seed to be greater than the stars in the sky. Okay, read verse 18.
For if the inheritance is by Torah, it is no longer by promise, but Elohim gave it to Abraham through a promise.
Okay, so again, Torah used over here is being used to mean the Mosaic covenant, not necessarily law, but this other covenant that comes that doesn't do away with the Abrahamic covenant. And by the way, if the promise had anything to do with this second covenant, then he's saying Elohim gave it to Abraham through a promise, not through this other covenant. Okay, so 19.
Why then the Torah it was added because of transgressions until the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained through messengers in the hand of a mediator.
Okay, very good. So now this is interesting, right? He's continuing on with this idea. He's calling this thing Torah when he's speaking about the covenant, the Mosaic covenant. It's interesting. Somebody that I know, I can't remember who it is at this point, talks about the fact that the law was added because of transgressions. The Torah was added because of transgressions. Somehow they caused this to mean about like the sacrifices and things. I don't know how it is that they do it. I may not even be thinking about it correctly. But when we think about what this is saying here, why then the Torah, again, the Torah here is the Mosaic covenant, was added because of transgressions. What are we talking about? The Torah, when we think about the covenant, this Mosaic covenant, the Mosaic covenant, the law, statutes, commands of the Most High show the people, Israel, how to worship the Most High correctly. We, in fact, as people, live in a life that's full of transgressions. And so when we think about what it is that the Torah helps for us to do, when I say the Torah, I mean the conditions of the covenant. It helps us to be able to walk in a way that is right unto the Most High. And so he chose the people. He chose the people that come from Abraham, that includes, his descendants that come from his loins, his physical descendants, that's going to be greater than the stars in the sky. And in order to give these people boundaries and a way to live their life, he gives us this Mosaic covenant, which, as it says, does not alter the Abrahamic covenant. It says, until the seed should come to whom the promise was made. So it's talking about the Messiah, who is the one who brings the total manifestation of the promise that's given to Abraham. Okay.
I mean, that makes sense, even because when you look at the giving of the commandments, it ends with speaking about the altar at the end of Exodus 20. It just goes straight from talking about the commandments to talking about the altar of earth that shall be made.
Yeah. And again, all it is giving the standard and boundaries for the people, for the beneficiaries of the covenant, right? It's a point in the middle of the Abrahamic covenant, which you see the fulfillment of it with the new covenant. Okay. All right, keep on going. 20.
The mediator, however, is not of one, but Elohim is one.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Torah then against the promises of Elohim? Let it not be. For if a Torah had been given that was able to make alive, truly righteousness would have been by Torah.
Okay, this is interesting because, again, we see where you have this distinction being made. Again, the Torah, again, is talking about the covenant, right? But the covenant now, the standards that are within the covenant and the standard that's within the covenant, they do not bring life to you, and they do not cause there to be righteousness in you. Righteousness don't come through this standard of righteousness that is the Mosaic covenant. It's a standard for the people, right? Your connection to the Most High, you being the called, set apart people of the Most High, is the thing that causes you to have righteousness, not the doing of things. The doing of things don't bring life in you. Only the life giver is able to give you life, right? So truly righteousness would have been in the Torah if that's what he wanted for it to be doing. But in fact, righteousness comes. It's interesting when we looked at that other verse where it talked about the idea that, we learn of the righteousness of Elohim from faith to faith. We learn of the righteousness of Elohim through our connection through Messiah, through this seed that's being spoken of over here, the Messiah, right? Okay, 22. Read 22.
But the scripture has shut up all mankind under sin, that the promise by belief in Yeshua Messiah might be given to those who believe.
Keep on.
But before belief came, we were being guarded under Torah, having been shut up for the belief being about to be revealed.
Okay, he did it again over here with these rhetorical methods that he's using. Now, before he was talking about the Torah, and the way that he was talking about the Torah was when he was saying Torah, he was meaning the old covenant. But now in verse 23, he says, but before belief, before faith came, we were being guarded under Torah. He does it two ways over here. He says before faith came, faith that he's talking about is belief in, he defines it above, belief in Messiah, faith in Messiah. So he's calling faith in Messiah, he's calling that now, he's calling it faith. When we were being guarded under the Torah. But we already know that the way that he's talking about Torah is talking about the old covenant, the Mosaic covenant. And so before belief came, now, but the reason why you know that he's calling the new covenant, he's calling it belief and not just the word belief or faith, because Abraham had faith before the Torah even came. So is he talking about the word faith before belief? Faith only just came out whenever Messiah came around? That's not what he's trying to say over here, but he's using these kind of rhetorical methods to make a point. He's saying before faith in Messiah came, which he's referring to simply as belief, we were being guarded under the Torah.
Okay.
The old covenant. Not to say that he's saying we were being guarded under the law, but under this old covenant. It kept us in check. It kept us in, it was created to keep us living a particular life according to a particular standard until something else was to come along. It don't negate or take away from the original covenant. The Abrahamic covenant is just keeping us at a particular, to having a particular standard until the real thing comes, the new covenant that comes through Messiah. Verse 24 there.
Therefore, the Torah became our trainer unto Messiah in order to be declared right by belief.
So the old covenant, the Torah, again, not just law in general, but the old covenant became a trainer unto a schoolmaster, unto Messiah, in order to be justified by faith. It gives you this standard of living that now with the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside that we gain through Messiah, we're able to understand what's happening on the inside of us and have something to compare it to. Oh, the Most High is saying that he wants me to do this, this, and that. Oh, that sounds just like what I would be doing if I was doing this according to the law, statutes, and commands. We have this thing to look back to that bears witness with the word of the Most High. Just like when we look at what the words that's given to Moses, we're able to look over to what Messiah does, what Messiah teaches, and they bear witness with one another. But now we have the situation where we're not under this old covenant. This is why it's so important to be able to understand these little things that Paul is doing, in the way in which that he's teaching. If you're not paying attention over here, you could say that the law is what he's talking about in general, and then, well, this is what people do. And so the law, we don't have to worry about the law. Now I just worry about faith in Messiah. I just worry about grace, right? That's this old thing that we throw away, right? Now that was that. Now this is this. But if we're thinking about this properly, understanding that the foundation of this is the Abrahamic, we have the Mosaic kind of in the middle that kind of kind of as our schoolmaster. It helps us along. It keeps us going in a particular direction. It don't change us. It don't make you righteous. It don't cause you to be righteous. It just causes you just to be in right standing with the Most High as much as a person could actually physically be. But now, once you've made it past that, which in the fullness of time we have, where we have the Ruach HaKodesh that comes and leads us and guides us in all truth. The truth that it leads us and guides us in is the truth of the character of the Most High that actually resides in the Torah and is manifest through us as we walk in the spirit of the Torah.
Yeah.
In righteousness. Okay, keep on going. Verse 25
says, and after belief has come, we are no longer under a trainer.
Okay, now again, belief is not just belief in general. This is talking about the new covenant. After the new covenant has come, we're no longer under the trainer, which he said the trainer was the old covenant.
Yep.
The old covenant showed us the way. The old covenant was our foundation. The old covenant caused us to be able to understand what the character, the things of the Most High are. But now that we have the belief in Messiah, which brings about the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of us, we're no longer under the trainer. Verse 26.
For you are all sons of Elohim through belief in Messiah Yeshua.
Go on.
For as many of you as were immersed into Messiah have put on Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
There is not Yehudi nor Greek. There is not slave nor free. There is not male and female, for you all are one in Messiah Yeshua.
Okay, so we have to understand that this don't cause you to be like this don't cause you to be asexual. Faith in Messiah don't cause you not to be a man anymore if you're a man. It don't cause you not to be a woman anymore if you're a woman. It don't cause you to be a Gentile if you are Israelite. Right? It's not saying that. If you're a slave, it don't cause you to be automatically not a slave anymore. That's not what it's saying over here. Right? But what it is causing you to understand from a spiritual perspective is that you are being connected to Messiah. You're literally putting on Messiah and you're taking on a new identity. Spiritually. Because you're still going to be a man if you're a man. You're still going to be a woman if you're a woman. If you have a master, a physical master, you're still going to have a physical master. But from a spiritual perspective, you're being renewed internally. And verse 29 says what?
Verse 29 says, and if you are of Messiah, then you are seed of Abraham and heirs according to promise.
You are a seed of Abraham. Now, he's doing all of this seed singular thing to cause us to understand a very important message. We are who we are because of the most important seed of Abraham that there could be, which is Messiah. The only reason why you're able to be counted as heirs according to the promise is because of what it is that Messiah has done for you. A particular seed. A particular seed. Right? Which brings us all the way back to where we started in terms of the Abrahamic covenant. Right? The way in which we are able to benefit from this covenant that's created with Abraham is through Messiah. It's through Yeshua. It's because of the fact that the singular seed, Messiah, was able to live, die, raise from the dead, go back to the Father, send back his Ruach HaKodesh so that we are able to receive that spirit on the inside of us and cause us to walk in his laws, statutes, and commands. And so when we think about what it is that we learn from the covenant made with Abraham, it is the foundations of it all. Right? He made this covenant with Noah, right? But that really was just saying that he wasn't going to destroy the earth with water anymore, right? But when he makes this covenant with Abraham, he's providing the foundation for the way in which we make it back to the garden. He's created the building blocks for how we get back to being connected to the one that made us in the first place. It's the foundation for our rejoining back to the Creator. And so it's interesting when we look over here at this, even as we continue on to look at the life of Abraham, that, not only is the covenant that's made with Abraham, not only is it so important, but also the journey that Abraham goes on, is such a teaching tool, understanding the importance of our faith. Just like Abraham had to have faith in Yahweh in order to do what he had to do. His whole plight is based on faith. And the same thing is true for you and I. Our whole situation, our whole entrance, the key into everlasting is faith. And we have to live a life of faith, unwavering faith in Messiah to be able to navigate and make it through this life. Because there's things that we're going to face, right? These uncomfortable situations and circumstances that we're going to, find ourselves in. And unless we're able to continue in faith, we're never going to make it. Unless we continue and know that the Most High is in fact our shield, and we're not to be afraid. We're never going to make it to the other side. Okay, so that being said, does anybody have any last questions, comments about any of these things over here before we are finished? All right, so in case we'll say for now, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Y'all willing, we'll be back on next week to continue with our look at the life of Abraham. All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah.